School Board Workshop for April 2nd, 4 o'clock to order. And Mr. Clinch, I'm assuming we will turn it over to you. Welcome, Mr. Soto.
Thank you.
Mr. Weishire is having travel problems and maybe probably will not make this meeting.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Thank you. We're looking forward to another informative workshop. So we have two items that we're going to cover this evening: St. Cloud Middle School project update and our property updates. So this is St. Cloud Middle School and the elevations that the board previously approved. No changes there. And in fact, we're very close now to taking this into construction. We'll be having our construction manager joining us earlier to provide some various options, schemes, priorities that they've worked through for you to view and determine how you would like that project to move forward. So a little bit of background. There are 6 buildings, and we have the years and how old and what the building is, the title of the building. And as you recall, the Castaldi analysis allowed only one building to be raised. So we'll be raising building 1. That's the older 44-year-old. That's the main round building. So we have all the other buildings that we are required to retain. Some of those buildings will be repurposed. Others, like the old band building, will become some future ancillary use, and we've had some recent discussions about that, what that will be. We have not determined what that building will be yet. It is not part of the future St. Cloud Middle School project, but we're going to continue to look at different options and what will fit our district needs best. Continuing our background, so I'll take you back to when the sales tax program was approved. Our chairman at the time, Chairman Thacker, asked for the board for a vote, and as a body, we decided to go forward and pursue the sales tax program. We were successful, and it is making a tremendous difference. We are very thankful to the citizens of Osceola County for voting it in, and we are spending those dollars responsibly. So like the Michigan Ave and Den John Middle School projects, we worked through the similar exercise where we had shared with you that our initial estimates, project budget estimates for those projects, were developed when we were going through what our bonding needs might be. And this was before the sales tax program was approved. So we didn't have all our information. Program verification hadn't been completed for these various school sites to determine what programs we want to continue to carry and what we want those programs to look like in the future of the school.
And we hadn't gotten approval from the state yet to take down Building 1.
Yes. We were working on the facility condition assessment information that we had at the time. So based on that, it was very limited information that was provided to develop that project budget. It was essentially just the replacement of Building 1, some light to moderate remodeling of existing buildings, and the associated site work. That was it. So now that we've been able to work through the program verification and get a good comprehensive understanding of what the needs are for that site, what we need to do justice to that project, we have a better understanding in that construction budget. And this is if we select everything today. So this last bullet is kind of jumping forward. We would be looking at the order of somewhere around $30 million for construction. And of course, the project budget would be adjusted or added to that accordingly so that we can carry all those soft cost items, material testing, the design fees, and all the things that go into a project.
Remind me, Mr. Clinch, what the total was on Harmony Middle School. Is it 33, if I remember correctly? Just kind of for a
Harmony Middle was
construction or total budget?
Total project budget was 40.279.
Yeah.
Construction was 32.
Okay.
32,366.
But the total budget was 40.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
4279.
And as Mr. Thacker pointed out, a lot of that was the extensive site work
Sure.
that had to be done. on that.
Absolutely.
So with that, I'm now going to invite our construction manager, Bill Zecker, who is Associate Vice President with Clancy and Thays, to join us at the table. Everyone knows Bill.
Thank you.
And we're going to walk through those various priorities, starting with the base, which would be this first slide that you're looking at. Bill, take it away.
Sure, thank you, Mark. So what we had done is we had broke the project down into multiple components for you to have a decision tonight on which parts you want to go forward with, or if all of them. So the first piece is the Building 1 classroom building, along with the build-out of the Building 2 that was already been built. That's the cafeteria. So this is the expansion of the side that we left as a shell. So that total cost was $22,700,000, approximately, in round dollars. And obviously, we would prioritize this as a must-have, obviously. So this would be a scope that we think would be necessary for the project.
How much, and you may not know this, and maybe the answer is zero, is the additional cost of building the cafeteria like we did, where we have to go in and touch it twice as opposed to building the whole thing the first go around?
Really, the only additional cost would be the temporary wall that we put in.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very minor. Actually, it's probably less than $50,000 that would get spent as throwaway
That's
costs.
fine.
And that wall that's in today is a fixed wall. That will be replaced with a movable wall. So we just weren't at that point with the project. We were trying to keep our costs contained just to the elementary school portion, what we needed for.
If we would have put the movable wall in, would it have almost eliminated any duplicate costs?
It could have. We probably still would have had to do something in the way of protection of that wall.
There was a structural piece that needs to be added to hold up that, and we did not do that piece yet. So that would have been the difference.
Okay.
The header
Yep.
to hold up the wall.
Yep.
So moving to the next slide is actually a cumulative total of the components added, and this is we'll call it the site work and site development costs, along with the demolition of the existing buildings and then landscape irrigation. So this is kind of a more encompassing component of the site, and this was a add of $5 million, which gives us a cumulative total of $27.8 million. Again, this would be a priority that we would say is a must-have, of course.
And for any of these comprehensives that are on an active campus like this one is, that has to be maintained and run while we're doing all this construction, there's a lot of temporary fence, there's temporary drives that we have to provide, temporary sidewalks we have to provide. That a lot of that's throwaway. It has to come down as you're going from phase to phase, but it's absolutely vital to keep the campus working while you're doing the build-out. So in many ways, these comprehensive projects are quite a bit more expensive than doing a green field site where you can do everything once.
And we understand the fact that we have to work around the ongoing school operation. We're the guest on that school site. We work around their operations.
So the next component is Building 5, which is adjacent to the new middle school. This is to do some minor code upgrades, add a DAS system, do some fire alarm, and then some painting associated with the project. And this would be about $225,000 of additional cost. And then the cumulative total increases to $28 million. Again, we made this like a number 2 priority. It's not a high priority, but it's something that we think is in conjunction with the existing building. We do have a connector bridge that connects to this building at the second level. So
This is what we call the 6th grade center now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it is vital that we expand the POE system, the fiber optic system that runs everything, to include this building, because now we have to tie it all into one common campus. So for the fire alarm, for the intercom, all those technological things, we still have to touch this building in at least that limited way.
Right.
We could choose to paint it or not paint it, but we still have to tie the building in with the rest of the campus.
So it's one unified fire alarm
And
system.
right now, it has
and
its
we're
own
done.
chiller plant. We're tying it into the new chiller plant. So
Well, I would think fire alarms and intercoms are a big safety issue.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, we would call this a must-have as well.
Priority 2, we believe, is a
Okay.
must-have. It's
Okay.
Building 5 is existing. It wouldn't make any sense to just leave it and vacate it. There's still lots of good life left to it. It's not very old, so it absolutely makes
It's
sense.
what they call
to
the new
incorporate.
building out there.
That's right.
Really,
And
the only optional element of that is if we paint it or not, and it's $50,000.
Yeah, it's not a huge problem.
To match the exterior of the new
Wait,
school.
what did you say was the only optional? The painting and building 5.
We'll move to priority 3.
So-
When's our painting, excuse me, I'm sorry, when's our painting schedule anyway? 12-year-old building, when would you repaint it?
Every 12 to 16
So
years.
it's already
It's
scheduled, it's
Yeah,
already
it's
scheduled
time.
for
It's already- it's
repainting?
time.
It's due, right.
It's due
It's ready.
anyway, okay.
Yes,
So it's not an ad, it's just,
Yeah.
gotcha.
we'd have to do it anyway.
We would have had, yeah.
The next component is the locker room expansion to Building 4, so the expanding of the existing gym to add the locker rooms. We made it a priority number 3. It's about a $1.1 million of additional cost. And again, it's, I wouldn't say this is a must-have, but this is
How
something.
many
I think
middle
is-
schools do not have locker rooms currently?
Din John, but we're adding it.
Right,
I
exactly.
mean,
Remember,
this
that
is
is one of the things
basically
we're
the same
adding.
thing we're doing at Din John,
Yes,
correct?
that's
Correct.
correct.
This was
Absolutely.
an,
locker
this was an
rooms-
equity item.
But the locker rooms at St. Cloud are part of the building that's going away.
Right.
So,
They made that change.
would have to-
yeah, they did a
Then John.
modification to the existing, so it's,
They,
we believe it is required, given they somewhat have that capability today.
The
but
Mustangs
they don't
really
have the
care
full
about their
capability.
athletic program as well, just
They do,
with
yes.
both my daughters.
But this does mirror what we're doing at Den John.
Okay.
So the fourth priority is actually the renovations of Building 4, which are some, again, code upgrades, interior finishes, mechanical replacements, bleachers, fire alarm, et cetera. And that's about a $500,000 or $470,000 of additional cost, which brings our cumulative total now to $29,600,000.
If we are discussing equity, since I'm in this gym a ton,
Yeah.
I can tell you that probably only the match would be Din John, and I know we're renovating it anyway.
Right.
The match as it is.
Yes.
So again, this duplicates what we're doing at Den John Middle School. It's an option. We don't have to do it, but from an equity standpoint, we probably should.
Well,
You
but
know,
you
but
do
I-
need to do the upgrades and the fire alarm anyway.
Yeah, that's,
That's correct, yes.
There's got to be parts of it that have to be done.
Yep.
so what are we doing that's not required?
I
I
think
mean, I don't think anybody's questioning whether we need fire alarms fixed and the code upgrades. So where are the flooring?
New flooring and bleachers.
probably those are the big pieces that you're doing in our.
But you don't break those out here.
I didn't break them out, but we certainly could provide.
Just
those.
give me a rough ballpark percentage wise. Is
You're
that half
probably-
of this? Is it two-thirds
No,
of it?
you're probably looking at about, yeah, maybe about half with the bleachers and everything. About
Half would be
Couple $100,000.
the wishes and the other half are the requirements anyway.
When would the flooring be due for when would the flooring be up for?
It's kind of there now.
And then I guess that's my
it's
other
there now.
is that
And
if you're already there,
keep in mind, it's an 18-year-old building, so
so yeah,
it's-
if you've got an
it's due.
18-year-old floor, it's due for replacement, kind of like the 12-year-old paint. Then it's not really an ask; it's the scheduled maintenance that we're including in the project because you're there. It would be cheaper to do it now than it would be to wait 2 years later and have somebody come in and do it then. It'd probably cost double than what we could get it done.
Yes.
I think the point that we should probably make is that while we're presenting these things as somewhat optional, they're not absolutely required for us to be able to educate kids in the building. We are bringing forward everything that we've identified as a recommendation in order to take care of the scheduled maintenance things that we would
Correct.
ordinarily take care of anyway while we're there, and to get a building that is equitable and operationally efficient as we do our other buildings while we are there.
And I think
Does that make sense?
historically, that's what
It's
the
not-
board has
right.
wanted.
Right, it's not luxuries, we're not bringing forward frills, so to speak, or at least we don't see them as that. But at the same time, we honestly,
Wait till you turn the page.
okay,
Before you do that,
Oh, my goodness.
yes, sir.
just wanted to be reminded briefly, explain to me this whole concept of why we're doing this on the theory of equity. What is this equity play? Mr.
Well,
French?
it's the
Is that-
difference between prototype and prototypical. This is not a prototype. They're not getting a new prototype, but it should be prototypical. It should be similar to what we're building Harmony Middle School to.
So you're saying then, so I could understand it, is that, so we're taking this model with Harmony Middle School, and we're basing all of the upgrades on our new construction in middle schools to mirror that.
That's not exactly true. If you look at Harmony.
Okay, well then explain, because I
at
want to know the whole
Harmony-
equity part.
Harmony, we've got a very, very large gym. We've got double bleachers, quite a bit of an expanded ancillary portion to it, and that big CTE that's not going to be here. What we are trying to do is get back to the base standards district-wide, and make sure when we do a comprehensive, that we set the clock back to zero, so all those vital systems that make that school function and operate will be, as Mark said, prototypical of a brand-new school. It's not going to be a brand-new school.
Right.
It's a comprehensive. It's different. It's a different animal.
But I think too, programmatically, this board has supported middle school athletic programs that go beyond the basic requirements for middle school PE. This board has supported fine arts programs that go beyond just having a music room or a band room. And these are the types of facilities that we want to make sure that as we rebuild or renovate or build new, we provide spaces for. That again, I would say are not luxurious. You know, we're not adding in extra frills or dreams as much as we are, what are the things that we believe make sense from an operational standpoint and an educational standpoint for our middle schools across the district to have as a standard?
And what are those exactly? I mean, when it comes to what we're doing here with St. Cloud Middle School.
A gym, a locker room.
And that's the equity there. That we
With
have
the
that,
athletic amenities.
we have that in Harmony, we have that in Jen John.
Have it in every other middle school except for
Yes.
this one.
Because the current locker rooms at St. Cloud Middle School were added into the building that'll be torn down.
But there's no particular need that's been identified that this has to be done.
That's what we're saying. It doesn't have to be done.
Okay.
But it is our recommendation from the standpoint of having facilities that are comparable across our district and that meet the academic and programming needs that this board has prioritized, unless you guys want to change that.
But we're not.
Not necessarily, hold on. I'm almost
Yeah, no,
done.
you're fine.
I'm almost done. But there is already, at least as far as programs in place that we're going to be making use of all of this.
Yes, correct.
That was going to be my, no, go ahead.
No, you've been talking. Go ahead.
That was my point, is that we're not using these for 12 boys and girls basketball games per year. We're using this for PE.
Right.
We're using it every single day.
Yes.
And also, I think, I'm going to make a statement, you tell me if you agree or not. The fiscally responsible thing to do is when you are doing a comprehensive renovation is to go ahead and repaint the 12-year-old paint.
Right.
And that's the schedule. Refloor the 18-year-old
Exactly.
floor. Because you already have the construction folks on site. If we're not going to go, I mean, to Mr. Soto's point, we're not going to go to another middle school that's not being renovated and go, oh, you don't have as many locker rooms as this school, so we're going to stop what we're doing and come and build you locker rooms. What we're saying is, if we're going to go through these comprehensive renovation programs like Denjon, like St. Cloud, we're
Yes.
going to make these small upgrades for our physical education and for our middle school athletics that are going to bring the schools up to some sort of level, prototypical
Right.
level, even though, I mean, other schools will be nicer, newer, I get that.
Right.
So would that be fair?
Absolutely,
statement?
yes,
Okay.
yes. And again, when we initially developed this project budget, before the sales tax program was approved, it was essentially based on bare bones. We were looking, for the bonding requirements. Now that we're deeper into this, and we're there, boots on the ground, where we've really dug into this one, program verification, we've crawled through those facilities to really see what is needed there, so that this is our time to get it right. We don't want to have to go back in 2 or 3 years and say, gee, we should have done this or that. We want, and we're presenting all these options. And honestly, all 6 priorities that we present, we're going to recommend that we do all 6. But we are here at the pleasure of the board. We will do whatever you direct us to do.
Terry?
Yeah, thank you. Just to kind of piggyback on what Mr. Booth said, and educate me if I don't understand this correctly, will the community also be able to use the gym facilities at some point? Can they rent it out? I know Den John
Yes, that's possible.
has
If they do a joint
contract with the
use
city.
agreement,
Okay, so this
yes.
can also be used for more than just the
It
students.
could.
It can be used for the community around. Okay.
And
Yes.
that's one of the features of
Yeah.
the shared cafeteria spaces, is that can be opened up
Great.
for a large group meetings place in the city of St. Cloud, which
It'd
they
be
were
the
very,
largest-
very excited
be the
about.
largest meeting
'cause they
place.
It'll be
didn't
the
have it.
largest meeting space in the city.
Yes, and that
Like
would
a
be through a
convention
joint use
space.
facility. And we actually are purchasing the tables and chairs that make it amenable for
style.
that kind of use.
Okay, great. So this could extend to be helpful for the entire community, not just
Additional-
the
I can
students.
tell you the
New
city of St.
generation.
Cloud is excited about the new large area because they struggle to go anywhere in St. Cloud to do things. A lot of the chamber events, they'll try to squeeze into the community center, which is down by the baseball fields,
Right.
which is maybe not even half the size of the cafeteria. So I think I have a belief that you're going to see a ton of the chamber and city events happen after hours.
And we get a huge benefit of people in the community being in our schools,
Absolutely.
subliminal.
No, I would agree.
Great questions, great points, thank you. We'll move to priority 5, stay on track with the track.
Sure. So the next component is related to existing track and converting it from a clay track to an actual asphalt track. It's not necessarily going to be meant to be a competition certified track, but it will be lined to be able to hold events at it. It's just not necessarily fully measured for a true high school kind of event. So
This is what happened when the county commission paved all those roads over there.
Yeah.
Now they want
Yeah.
the track
Now
paved.
they want the track.
And most of you know, today,
They didn't pave the P vine, though. They stopped at that.
today it's a dirt track. There are numerous
Yep.
drainage issues on that
No, I
field.
don't have a
So this is an opportunity to correct
There's a
all
drainage
those
issue in that
issues.
whole area.
Yes.
yes.
And we,
There's a reason the folks that owned that before gave it to the high school.
we have designed a full storm system to address those issues.
Let me ask a question on something you just said.
Sure.
It's not going to be a competition track. I can't remember your exact words, but an asphalt track. What is the difference in price for that?
It's very, very nominal. I mean, because they were already out there doing the work to create the competition track. It's mainly a certification process that we have to go to. We may have to elongate it a little bit to allow for the track surface to be big enough to do it, but we're talking nominal cost.
If it's nominal, should we look at, do you get anything out of having that or not?
This is the only thing
I'm not sure I
I'd
totally
step
understand.
back here at St. Cloud Middle and say they're one of the lucky middle schools is that they
Across the
literally
street.
can walk to
Yes.
the high
To
school.
the high school?
Yes.
And so this is one of the things where I would push back a little bit and say, hey, let's get as
Okay,
cheap as we
we'll look at that.
And
Let me
we're
change that
working-
word. Let's get as fiscally responsible as we can here, not cheap, but fiscally responsible, and remember that St. Cloud Middle, unlike a Denjon or a Parkway or a lot of our other middle schools, can literally walk across Michigan Avenue, which is a big benefit to their middle school athletes, so they have access to the football. I was just at a flag football game, middle school flag football last night for my girls, and they get to play all their games there, where the other folks have to travel around everywhere
Right.
because they have essentially the high school right there.
Mark, you'll recall when we went through program verification with the stakeholders, there was a bigger concern for making sure we had adequate size for the play field inside the track. If you enlarge the track to be competition, you take away that interior space.
What does the PE department say over there? You know, what are they
They
looking
don't
If you do a bigger
require?
track, you lose space, I'm a little lost.
I'll let you
Make it wider.
answer that first. Go ahead.
Yes, that we're limited to the outside dimensions that we can build a track in physically with existing fencing and drives. So we have to stay within that geometry.
Okay.
When you make the track, if you make the track
Surface was bigger.
surface wider, then
You'd have to move it in as
Yeah,
you
opposed
have to
to.
move it
Yeah.
in. So you start taking away your
Gotcha. Okay.
interior
I got you.
field space.
So they're more about maybe having a soccer
want a
practice than they
soccer
are.
field.
They want a
They want
soccer
soccer.
field.
to make sure
they
it's a
want a track to run
combination use.
PE.
That would be my suggestion
that for
is to
PE.
say, what do they want? I know they have a very good. My girls are not soccer players, but I know they have a very quality soccer program there,
Right.
and it's very popular.
We'll certainly look at that.
So I would certainly talk to them and say, hey,
Sure.
where is it that you want to go? I mean, not that I wouldn't be looking forward here to the long term, but certainly I think talking to the folks that are on the ground at this
Right.
point would be a smart.
And to answer your latter question, we had included our stakeholder. They did not have a desire to have a certifiable track. It's not something that they
Because of-
carry for a middle school.
And this would be a certified track?
Well, no,
It
what
can
we've
get wider.
what we've included is not a certifiable track. But we will be happy to look at that.
Why
and
is
see
this
what
the addition is basically paving the dirt that's there now. That's
putting in
what
a
this
base
addition-
and
Yeah.
a little bit
It's
more
Which
than
certainly,
that,
I
but-
think,
yeah.
as far as where I sit, I would think, yes, I would be for paving the dirt. I guess the other questions are, how big is it? Can we do a soccer field instead of, and we just have a regular track we can practice on? We know we're gonna have our meets at St. Cloud High School,
Right.
that kind of thing.
The high schools have an 8-lane running track
Yeah.
that's certifiable. This is a 6-lane
Six
running
lane.
track.
And the high schools have got these surface,
Yep.
soft surface
The
on it.
rubber
And These
side
are
surface.
asphalt.
Yeah, just asphalt. We wouldn't do any rubberized treatment.
I'm good with that.
Okay, thank you.
The next priority is number 6, is the renovations of the existing chiller plant. This is the building that was custodied that cannot be removed. So this is basically to go in and gut it all out and turn it into
We're
a
moving those
storage.
chillers.
Yeah.
The chillers are going to a central energy plant.
Yes.
So now it becomes an empty
For the
shell.
two schools?
Yes,
For
sure.
both
Michigan
schools,
is-
yes.
So now you have a building with, a chiller building with no chillers in it.
Correct. It's
Right.
an empty building.
So to make it into kind of a storage facility, if
Okay.
you will, it was the thought process. Again, probably a lower priority, but it would make sense. The building can't go away, so it seemed like to repurpose it to storage made sense.
I mean, you're either gonna throw the building away or you're gonna spend this amount of money on it and make it a usable storage facility. That's essentially what we're talking about.
Right.
You can't take it down. It's either
Yeah.
gonna.
I mean, the building, the
Be an
utilization of the building's going away. You have to spend a little bit on it to make it,
To make it into
to make it into
storage.
usable space.
So with all that said, as
And where is that building in location to the elementary school?
it's kind of in the,
It's in the back.
if we go back to.
Maybe we're gonna
Could it be
store
used
our
for-
tables and chairs
Well,
for
that's,
our.
that's what, could it be used for both?
It's kind of right back here in this little corner right there.
Okay.
Oops, sorry.
That's,
Right in that back corner
Okay.
right there. It's right in that back corner. Elementary school.
I was gonna say, it's
Far-
pretty,
far-
I know where this building is, it's pretty
Far
far
away
from
as
the
it is.
elementary.
Okay, I was
It's
just-
right up on the back corner of the
Yeah, I
property,
know.
back there, I think, behind the pod.
It may make sense for like almost like athletic storage
Yeah.
too, because you're not too far from your fields at that point. You're actually not far from the gym in that corner either. So it could be an athletic kind of storage. I'm not saying that's what it is, but there's a potential for.
Are we
that.
talking about maybe putting up like a roll-up bay door so we
Yes.
can?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Putting a roof on it.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that there is still the current music and band building that is up towards the front
Yeah.
of the site that we are in discussion. As it stands right now, it's not a part of the renovation project. We will be
Are they
vacating
getting a
that building.
new band room? Is that
It's
They
in
what
the
are.
main
and
building.
It's one of the
We
back
will be vacating
buildings
that
in the courtyard.
building and then determining over the course of the next 6 months or so with the board what would make the best use of that
An
space.
ancillary district type use, is that what we're discussing?
Yes.
We've talked about a couple of different things.
Okay.
So with all those being said, the total summary of all these costs, based on our initial budgets for the project, was $30,044,000. So again, I think what Mark had mentioned is we are here to obviously discuss what you guys would prefer to do and not to do. Obviously, our recommendation would be to do everything, but certainly it's open for a conversation and discussion with y'all on what made the most sense.
And we're recommending to do all 6 priorities, which the total construction costs of the 30 million. So that would put us at a total project budget amount of just north of 36 million, 36,169.
where's the other 6?
That's your soft costs. That's for your material testing, your design
FF&E,
fees,
largely.
FF&E. And that's based, and that's a great point, that's based on a 1.833 million FF&E, which is 9% of our new construction cost. So it works out to about 60 to 70% of new FF&E for the new facility. Now, that's what we went into Michigan Ave with, that same thought process, that we do about 70%. And at the end of the day, we ended up doing 100% new FF&E. So,
So they've
depending
got to
on.
save enough money to get us there?
We certainly, that would be, if that's our charge, absolutely. We would take on that challenge to try and hold to the 36.1 and, do something with our FF&E budget. And, FF&E is a continual process that goes on throughout the
So
project.
what I'm hearing is the state would rather have you renovate and work around old buildings and spend the same exact money instead of just leveling a site and building a brand-new middle school for the same money.
That's
I just want to put that out.
The Castaldi formula actually,
But it looks good.
That's pretty much
in
how
the
it works.
paper.
right.
I get it.
but they still, even if you can prove that it's more cost effective to
I
replace.
know we've been through this.
If
We've
it's
had this
too new, they
conversation.
still won't
I was
let you
just
do it.
making. I'm off my soapbox now.
And their philosophy is that original school was built with taxpayer dollars. Let's make sure the taxpayers get their full value from when that school was originally built. But
Turn it
again,
into a storage shed.
you're right.
And paint it and put a roof on it.
So what's the year that they would let us build a new school? 50? Is that the
50 is the standard for Castaldi.
And this is a
So
44.
this was 44, so we had to make a very strong case
Okay.
to get our approval.
Okay.
We had to point out system inequities, functional inequities, challenges with the site. We really had to make a strong case to get the approval for this. It
Actually,
was not
Terry, just for some background, this was one of the things that we lobbied for extremely hard last year on the state level, and Clarence and I had the opportunity to meet with Speaker Corcoran and some other folks at the time, and they did come through for us on that.
Okay.
Because they were essentially, it was more the Michigan Avenue with the student station upgrade than it was this, but certainly they did come through for us on that, kind of backed off of that. So I will say that. Kudos to our lobbying team. I know we give them a lot of props for that back then, but I'll give them some now too.
Okay, and the path ahead. So we've looked at the required versus the optional priorities to quantify. I don't believe that we're at a decision point yet, but again, we're recommending all 6 priorities. And again, as Mark pointed out, this is a phased project, so the cost is included in that to work around the ongoing operation, so that it's a phased, comprehensive renovation.
Just give me an idea, Mr. Clinch, and I'm sorry to interrupt, and
No, that's okay.
just indulge me, Mr. Chairman. Just give me an idea, some of these things, cut out the things like codes and fire alarms and things we know we need to do. Give me an idea, just a percentage in your mind. I threw the number out of double, but give in your estimate, and maybe yours too as a construction manager, if you were to come back in, say, 2 years and talk about repainting, resurfacing, redoing the building and making it usable for storage, just give me a rough estimate on the percentage of what it would cost then after the project is done as essentially a standalone project versus what it would be to put it inside a package here today.
If I understand your question correctly, it's what would it cost to do this at a later date?
Yes.
And the big gorilla in the room is escalation.
Okay.
We are currently, over the last 10, 12 years, we've been averaging 3.14% escalation. In some trades, much more. For example, masonry, plumbing, that's been in the high 20s. So on average, if we were to defer this, I would say that we would be looking at minimal 6.5% per year. So if we did this 2 years out, we would be looking at minimum another 13% in cost.
And that's not counting the work that we'd have to do to keep things running in the meantime. That's just the rolls everything.
That's just your escalation.
Right.
Yeah.
That would obviously cost more to come back with your time and other things, to
Mobilization.
come back and do it as a standalone project.
So to
Right.
answer, I
Okay.
think, another part of your question, which is, for an example, if we said, let's not do the track today, but we want to come back a year or 2 years from now, I would tell you, you're probably going to pay a premium cost of about 25% more than what you would pay today while we're on site. And the reason is you're remobilizing your
Yes, that's where I
all
was
your general
getting at,
conditions
yeah.
that you're not. I mean, because your general conditions now are spread across a very large scope of work now. It's going to be down around a very finite, small scope, and therefore it's going to be a fairly large premium and added cost. I mean, granted, the track component, say, is only $300,000, and 20% doesn't sound like a huge add to it, but you start doing that against multiple pieces, you're spending a lot of additional dollars.
Okay.
I like what you're doing here. I like the plan. What I would like to see too, though, is on these project advantages, a little bit where Ricky was just talking about. If we can quantify some of the things we've done, shared cafeteria, shared bus loop, some of these things, it'd be nice to have in our hip pocket when we can say, by doing these two things together, we were able to pull, even though we spent $60 million, it could have, if we'd have done them on two separate sites, it would have been 65 million or whatever.
Okay, we'd be
I
happy to
mean,
put
no,
that.
it's not a life work to do that, just.
Well, I can tell you for that first bullet, the shared food facility alone, just that facility, that saved us $2 million first costs and about $1.3 million a year in operational cost savings.
Those are the kind of things that are helpful to us as we're in the community and people, they're building schools everywhere.
One of the other things that I've asked the community relations team to do, I don't know if you had a chance to see some of the social media feed that Heather did, walking people through Michigan Avenue on a virtual tour with the opening up of that building, is to perhaps do a little tour of Denjon, because it's they're making some real great progress there. You could potentially showcase some of the work that's going to happen at St. Cloud Middle, just so that we can continue to educate our community about what this board has done with the taxpayer dollars
This is
that they
stuff on that
approved
social media
in
as we get
November.
ready to open St. Cloud, we need to be sure this gets out.
Okay,
So we just talked about that today.
Yeah.
okay, understood. And that'll take us to our schedule. Bill, would you like to take us through?
Sure, absolutely. So where we are right today is actually we took subcontractor proposals, just to give you kind of a little background. We already took subcontractor proposals for the entire project last week. We're going through now doing scope review. We received over right around 200 bids. We solicited about 600 and some people, received 200. We got really good price coverage, which we're very happy about. Actually, for the most part, we've seen most of the costs coming in very favorable to the project. We haven't, again, finished final scope review, which we are working through over the next couple of weeks to do. So our hope is to come back and ask for GMP approval. Probably the first board meeting of May is what we're looking for. That's our target right now. With a notice to proceed, they're following on it. I know our schedule right here says May 1st. We know that it's probably not necessarily May 1st. It's probably going to be mid-May. And then looking for the finishing of, we'll call it the main building, the classroom building for the middle school, finishing for the August timeframe, opening for that following year. Then moving into kind of like what we're doing now at Michigan Avenue, which is tearing down the old building. So we would move from opening up the new building, then go over and tear down the old buildings, regrade that out, put in the new sites that are going to be over there. It's mainly fields like sports fields, baseball, softball, some additional parking that's going to go over in there.
Thanks. Good.
So yeah.
Although I'll be done there at that time, but yes, they do need it.
And that is even more additional cost that we experience doing these comprehensives. We have to do the demolition. And demolition is relatively inexpensive, but it definitely
And,
adds up.
I don't know
Especially with the
if we
asbestos
have
remediation we have to do on these older buildings.
I don't know if we have a skid steer with a bucket on it, but I know they do. You might run over there to that visitor parking lot one day at St. Cloud Middle School and just kind of level it off a little bit for us. Maybe just as a gesture.
Yeah, sure. We can do that.
Yeah, we're actually looking at expanding the interim temporary parking there as well.
Yes.
Currently, the balance is parking on the new Michigan Ave property, and I know there's been some challenges with dismissal, but we are working on that to improve that.
Heck, you leave it for me. I'll come run it.
There you go.
All right.
You can go out there and have a little fun for the afternoon. So anyways, with that second phase being completed by the end of January 2021, it may actually finish a little sooner than that, but that's currently what we projected out as our schedule. And then-
And this isn't different than what we've talked about all along.
The only thing that, I'm just speaking for myself, I don't know if the rest of the board thinks, it bugs me a little bit to spend $30-something million and have a portion, 30% of the kids walk into something that looks like it's got old furniture and
That
stuff
was
in it.
actually going to be my question because I'm not familiar with this project. You guys have been working on this for a long time, so I see what is being done, what isn't being done. What are the buildings that are not being touched?
Well, this is, the FF&E is for the new components.
Okay.
So it wouldn't include Building 5, wouldn't include anything in the gymnasium.
Okay. It would
And-
not include, or it would?
Well, you
Well,
get new
based on-
bleachers, you said.
Yeah, which is not FF&E. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
part of
There's a
the,
small
I think her
amount of
question was broader than FF&E.
yeah,
It
oh,
was-
real, I'm sorry.
Yeah, can you
I thought
just explain FF&E for me as well, please? Like what
FF&E
yeah.
is furniture, fixtures, and
Got
equipment.
it. Thank
So
you.
if you tip the building upside down and shake
acronym
it,
book.
everything
I
that
have
falls out, essentially.
I do. Mr. Fritz gave it to me. I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's furniture, fixtures, and equipment.
Got it.
It's all the, technology, student desk, admin suite furniture,
Okay.
that type of thing.
Audio enhancement, the touch panels that they have in the classrooms, the laptops that the students are using.
Yeah,
All of
it was broader than that then.
Band instruments.
So I guess my question is.
Talking about full buildings.
Yeah, what is not being touched? And the reason I ask, and I think this is great, by the way. I am not against this in any way, shape, or form. I just, for my own knowledge, because I know that in order for us to, I mean, we are spending $30 million and
Right.
doing all these upgrades. Are we 36? Sorry, forgot about the soft cost. Are we going to spend more later on to upgrade other buildings?
What typically happens
Yeah.
on a comprehensive renovation is there's a survey completed of all the existing furniture, and they determine what can be retained, can still be, what is still serviceable. So, but in general,
Yes.
we typically get FF&E for all the new spaces.
Okay.
For example, Michigan Ave, when they completed the survey, well, we went in with an assumption that we'd be able to retain 30% of it. After they completed the survey, they determined only 10% of it is serviceable. But our assumption going in was that that existing furniture that would be retained would be enough furniture for Building 3, which is in Phase 2. It's a building that's separated from the new
Okay.
new school at
And
Michigan
for
Avenue.
example, when we did Michigan Avenue with the joint use kitchen for the two cafeterias, Michigan Avenue had just purchased brand new cafeteria tables.
Okay.
So we matched those cafeteria tables to fill, to give them their full complement of cafeteria tables.
So we're repurposing some of that,
Some of
some
that.
of those things that
But
we're
when we
getting rid
do
of.
when we do the middle school,
That was the
we will
intent.
have to match that.
Okay.
Because when you open the big doors, you'll want all that.
The middle school tables are going to be the same size as the elementary tables?
No,
No,
they're a
but
different
they'll match
style.
it.
They're
Okay. They'll
round
match
with
it.
the
Just match and
pedestal
Yes, and
seats.
yes.
Yeah, they're a different style.
I think, Ms. Castillo, you were also talking in a broader scope than just the FF&E. The only building that's
Yeah.
not being touched at
Yes.
this time is that band and chorus building
Got
that we
it.
talked about, that's at the
Yes.
front of the campus. Building 2, that's 24 years old.
Yeah.
That's the building, that's at the front of this little space. If you are looking at St. Cloud Middle School and you've got the parking lot that goes around, it's right over here. And so it's really going to be isolated from where the main campus is now,
Okay.
once this big building's torn down. So what we're talking about is, does that make sense for a VPK center, perhaps an ESC behavior center? Does it make sense for a professional development center,
Okay.
office space?
So this is where we're talking about ancillary use at
Right.
some point. Okay.
The
I
challenge
understand
with
now.
that
Thank
building
you.
is if we do something that serves students, we would have to do some work in the parking lot that's pretty fundamental for a bus loop for those spaces. So that's something that we're going to come back to as a separate project.
Got it.
Once we've really had a chance to vet the different options and needs and costs.
And if I might
Perfect.
add something here, remember too, the state has been very tough because of some bad actors, so I
get
get
it.
it. On, and you correct me if I'm wrong, on any addition of ancillary facilities. So even though we live in a district that's doubled, tripled in size in the last 30 years, they don't want us, you've probably heard me make the point here that when they built this building, I think there was less than 20,000 students in the district. Now we're having meetings for a district that has almost 70,000 students in this same building. So, you can pack this when you have things for parents and all, because this building was built for a school district with 20,000 students, not for a school district with 70. And so any chance that we get, and correct me if I'm wrong,
Sure.
any chance that we get to have a building that's already there and then to repurpose it for ancillary actually does make sense for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, we actually, as we grow, we rate more ancillary space. We're actually a little over right now. But as we continue to grow, opening Harmony Middle School,
Over
Celebration
in,
Island.
not by our standards, but by some
By
very
DOE
restrictive
Sure.
state
Right.
standards, which we want to follow, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate the
Thank you, Bill.
explanation.
Thank you.
So with that, we're going to put a recommendation on the board, where Facilities is recommending that we do all 6 priorities.
I'm in.
Okay. Very
I'm
good.
in and save enough money to get the FF&E.
Okay.
Yes.
So that'll put us somewhere a little north of 36 million.
Hear that,
We'll work
Bill?
with our chief financial officer to fine tune that.
And I want to ask Mr. Thacker, so what you're worried about is the desk and chairs that are already in Building 5, having those still be what is currently there, even though they may be just 12 years old.
I think
And
there's an
instead of-
attitude of, oh, I'm the group that nobody cares about, and I get this old stuff,
We'll just put all the 6th graders over there still.
so they don't count. But I think it's,
Man, that one, that's not what I was saying.
I know, I'm just kidding. It's like going to work and you walk up to a building that looks like it's about to fall down, it's hard to walk in.
I understand.
Great attitude as opposed to walking up to something that
Yeah, I
looks
get
like
it.
people care
Changes your
about it and care
outlook.
about what you do. And I
Yes.
think it's the same for a 6-year-old as it is for a 60-year-old.
Yes. So with that, we're going to move on to our property updates. I'm going to ask our Director of Planning, Mr. Rhonda Blake, to join us at the table.
Tell us about all these new properties that we can't find or can't afford to buy.
You know, one of the things that I think as a board we may want to consider as we move forward with our strategic plan work for the next 3 years of our work together is, are we at a place where doing some investment in terms of ancillary facilities really makes sense? In particular, we've talked about the need for an expanded transportation station on the west side. In particular, we've drastically outgrown Horizon Middle School Bus Depot, as well as then the Michigan Avenue St. Cloud bus site. And the city of St. Cloud would love for us to get maintenance off of 10th Street, where they would like to see, you know, some potentially significant commercial investment. So that's why, in addition to the need, obviously, for some additional seats, particularly in the K-8 realm on the west side, that we're talking again with you about property. So, Rhonda and Mark?
Okay.
Okay.
Take it away, Rhonda.
Just kind of wanted to bring you up to speed on the 3 properties we've been working on now for about 8 months. The first one is Yates Road. Tonight will be the second public hearing and reading at the City of Kissimmee to bring the ordinance regarding the airport in alignment with the Florida statute. So we'll get that item out of the way. We're currently pending the owner's appraisal to come in because Florida statute requires we have 2 appraisals for any property over $500,000. So we have our appraisal and we're still waiting on their appraisal to come in. Excuse me.
I just want to say thank you too to Mayor Alvarez for leading the charge on this. He's, you know, I've had some discussions with him throughout this process, and I think he's been, you correct me if I'm wrong again, but I think he's been very helpful.
Yes, he
He's
has.
been helpful on this, so thank you, Frank.
Kept it very on
And thank
track
you
that
for all
evening.
your work on it.
Yes, thank you, Frank and Rhonda.
So at this point, we are hoping to bring the purchase and sale agreement to you on May 7th. At that point, then we would have our next steps, which would be to update our our endangered species site assessment. We would need to move forward with the traffic study because the major item of contingency here is if the state's going to allow us to put that time of use light at Yates Road and 192. If we can't get that light, we would consider that a deal breaker because we need the parents and the buses to be able to come in and make left in, right out, and to go all the way across.
What's your feeling?
Based on the consultant who has an employee who used to work for the state, he thinks it's favorable.
Okay.
So we're looking forward to that. We're also still working with the owners of the property on stormwater retention. We're trying to decide if we can both go off-site into an existing FDOT pond or if we'll need to share stormwater on-site between our 2 properties. So we will begin those negotiations after we start sign the purchase and sale agreement. And then we'll enter the letter of agreements for stormwater, the signal, and any type of ingress egress improvements for the road.
And that's a significant issue because for this type of site, you know, 30% rule of thumb for stormwater retention, we're looking at about 5 acres.
Right. And then with them, and we're trying to still put everything on a 40-acre site because they still want to get their full end result, even though they're allowing us to purchase half of it. So we're working with that. The only other item that has recently come up is they would like to do joint use for recreational facilities, which we've always entertained with them. What I've been told, and I have not had time to research this because it's just been brought to my attention, we typically rezone our properties institutional, just if keep everything in the context it should be. But I've been told that if we rezone our 20 acres institutional, that will only leave them 20 acres zoned as their MUPUD, and that will prohibit them from moving forward with their apartments. So they're asking us if we will
Let's
entertain.
go ahead and do that. No, I'm joking.
So they're asking us to entertain not to zone our property institutional. So I need to meet with the city just to make sure that wouldn't create any additional impacts to us that normally wouldn't be applied.
Who
So-
owns this?
Say that again.
Who is the owner?
Talisman Group. It's Tom Lightsey and Bob Kaplis. I always call him Mr. Kaplis, Bob Kaplis. Yes. So I do need to meet with the city of Kissimmee this week just
How
to
many
see.
units is going on the 20?
Anywhere from 400 to 800.
So they're gonna fill the school up.
The only other
Good
challenge that I
Lord.
just want to bring the board's attention, and this will be true of all three properties, we had our appraisal done back at the end of August. It's now been about 6 months, and we know what escalation is happening in terms of property values. So we anticipate that the owner's appraisal may come in a little higher. One of the things that Rhonda and Mark will be asking you for is permission to potentially negotiate on your behalf, something closer to the original appraisal, without having to go out and get a third appraisal that might also come in at the wrong end of the equation.
Well, we certainly know, I mean, all of us sitting here know the benefit that having a K-8 school
Next to your project.
next to your apartment would bring. So certainly, I mean, we can hold that in our negotiations.
I hope we use that.
Okay. The next update, you want
Yeah,
to?
one thing I want to tell the board is we're playing, for lack of a better description, hardball with a number of developers. I mean, we're working very well with them when they want to do the agreements, but in terms of buying property, we're holding firm on some issues. So if any of them come to you to attempt to lobby around, call us and we'll brief you. But we're not blinking, and I told around, we're prepared to look at some of these people and go, fine, we don't need your property, we'll find something else.
Yeah, this would be one.
All right, so I'm just letting you know, we've had some real tough meetings
Meetings with them, yeah.
and said no, and so far, we've been getting where we want to get, but we're coming down to real nut cracking.
Yeah, we can.
The next one is Knightsbridge, which is on Poinciana Boulevard, just north of the Sunrail station. So that owner, we've pretty much finalized everything inside of the purchase and sale agreement. We're also just waiting on their appraisal to come in. It's due in about 10 days. Excuse me, so I don't really see any surprises with this property. I think it's going to go through as we're anticipating. And then again, once we bring the purchase and sale agreement, we would move forward with the traffic study, the signal install approval and permit. Again, we're not expecting any issues there.
This would be the high school side. I see you have all three
It's
listed, but this is the high school
Multiple
side.
options.
Yeah,
So we
were
would not
part-
buy all these, we'd just buy one of these?
It's, so basically, it's a 61-acre site with about 18 acres of wetland, and we're only actually purchasing the 43 acres of upland, but we would take over the whole 61 acres.
For retention and mitigation and that kind
And
of
the
stuff,
current
correct?
owner is actually going to take, it's Mr. Sabetti, he's going, at his cost, not our cost, he is actually doing some mitigation right now to make it a more usable site and a more friendly shape versus kind of the odd shape that it is right now. So by the time we would acquire it, it would be more of a perfect square for us to utilize.
And then we're still analyzing growth there to see what we're going to need most in terms of also looking at what those charter schools on that particular site are doing in terms of enrollment.
Do we have a concern about this backfill, or is this just we're making?
No, right now, we don't have any
crossing our Ts and
reason
dotting our Is?
to think we'll find anything there. It's just an extra step that we need to take to see how they rebuilt the borrow pit from years ago.
But our high school needs on the west side have continued to be.
It's a
Yes.
significant
Yes.
concern. Originally, this would have been your pre-K to 8 site, but if we can get the relief on Lake Yates Road,
Yes.
it may make more sense, to look at a high school site, either a magnet program, as you guys have discussed, or something more comprehensive. We're still looking at that.
A smaller comprehensive site.
Yes.
You don't think we can build a Toho here,
No.
but we could build a 2,000 seat,
Maybe 1,800.
1,800 seat high school?
Smaller one.
I like that idea.
Well, that's the size I like high schools anyway.
Me too.
Well, Celebration High School is bursting at the
Yes,
seams.
we do.
It's
Yeah,
just-
Rhonda has
largest high
briefed us
school.
on, I'm sure she's briefed all of you. I know we've had discussions about it, so.
Yes. And then the one that we've had the most activity on in the last 3 days, since Friday, is Robert McLean. So that was the site intended for the transportation west. So our appraisal came in, as everybody knows, at 1.5, and their appraisal came in at 2.4.
Okay.
So basically what we're doing right now is we are negotiating with them, and we're just going to continue to negotiate with them
We
based
think
on the
their
information
appraisal is
inside.
significantly flawed because he based it on the 4 properties, 3 of
Three of the
which
4.
are not in Osceola County.
Right.
Okay.
So we're going to go back and likely both appraisals had a common piece of property, and we're going to negotiate based on that commonality.
They were in downtown Orlando or something, or what's going on?
One was in Apopka, one's in Orlando, and I believe the other one was in Ocoee.
Okay. One was in Windermere.
Sure, they knocked this down, but that's,
So we are hoping also to bring that one back on May 7th. We're still remaining optimistic that everything will move forward. The good news about this site was when we found out we didn't have to move forward with the skink survey, because that would have been an additional $35,000.
is the 18 acres enough?
For a transportation site, yes, it would even give us a little room for growth.
Yes, we've actually sketched out.
Okay, when you
in
say
our-
a little room, what, I mean, I don't, it worries me if we're buying 18 acres and buying 2 years' worth of growth space. I'd rather hope we're buying at least 10 years' worth or something.
The idea is that we would be able to move, establish another maintenance compound on the current transportation site at Horizon.
Okay.
And we have sketched out a design that allows for ample parking and bays so that we could service the buses on that side. You know, currently, right now, we have no service bays at Horizon. They have to be transported back to Simpson Road every 30 days for their annual inspections and any service and anything like that. So there's considerable opportunity for operational savings, both for maintenance and transportation, by being able to do something like this.
Would you say we essentially have 3 bus stations? We have a west, and east, and a central?
Yes.
I mean, we do. We always
not
talk
full
about east
service,
and west,
but
but
we
we
have
do,
them.
Simpson Road counts as essentially a
Yes.
central
Yes.
bus station, right?
Yes.
So as we look at this, and on Mr. Thacker's point, is what are our opportunities at Simpson Road? I mean, we're pretty much locked in there. So really, our opportunities are west side, and then what can we do east side?
Correct.
And really,
And that's-
RV has looked very much at the Pine Tree site that we already own as being very viable for transportation. And again, the idea is then that we could repurpose the current transportation site on Michigan Avenue for a maintenance compound. And then that would free up the commercial space on 10th Street that we could then potentially market.
And would take a lot of buses off of Michigan Avenue.
And the city
Yes,
would like
which would be
that.
good.
So we're looking at
Just
this,
putting them on Canoe Creek Road, which, as long as it's not a multifamily housing
They'll go
unit,
both directions.
good.
They'll go toward Hickory Tree and North Creek as well.
this is about 100,000 an acre, right?
For us, it came in,
A little less than
It's
that.
close.
Close,
no, our came
close.
in at, I think, our appraisal came in at about 85,000 an acre.
I thought you said it was.
1.4 for 18
Oh,
acres.
I thought it was 1.4 for how many acres?
Oh, wait.
Well, it's 1.58 for
1.5.
18.83 acres. I believe it came in at 85,000, our appraisal.
And this is the piece literally just off of 1792.
And then you go in and make an immediate
Yeah,
left.
where the water
Yes, sir.
tower thing
Yes,
is.
sir. That's exactly where it is.
Fairly close proximity to Point San
That
Luis.
just seems, that value seems low to me. I'm just curious. Is there anything wrong
You
with
agree
this?
more with the 2.4?
No, I don't know if I'm.
Wait, thank you, Clarence.
No, I'm
Whose
just.
team are you on?
No, my concern was, is there some kind of?
Is there an issue? No,
Is there an
I-
issue of why it is
It's being
that?
appraised, we gotta remember, it's being appraised industrial, so it's not being appraised
Okay, 'cause
residential
I
or
mean, you've got a
commercial.
lot
They're
of, you
being
got a Gatorade
appraised.
plant, you got
Yep.
planes, you got your
Yep.
restaurant, you got a lot of
Yep.
things going on.
No, I understand.
Right across the street, which kind of surprised me, that value's. When I first saw this, I wondered if that seemed like
Where's
to get in and out
Where's
seems
Mr.
like a good
Weishauer
idea.
when you need him?
We
To
think
get-
it's overvalued, and that's.
Yes, thank you. I agree with Frank. I'm
It's
not
way
sure.
overvalued, but that's,
I'm a Mr. Crumpenbucker.
well, I have I guess, deep down, if the corner of 1792 and Poinciana Boulevard is not a bus barn is not the best and highest use of that property, should it be somewhere else, it's a little, I mean, I know we're not gonna put it 22 miles from any intersection where we can't get buses in now, but I think the price we get close to that price, it's a great price for that location. Just kind of struck me.
Yeah.
I was wondering, that's what
And
I
I
kept
get
wondering, is
that.
there something wrong?
No, all the due diligence done
Okay.
today. There is nothing to make
But
us
I
shy
think
away.
again, because you touched on a little bit, is it the best use of that property if there could be some more commercial type development done for that community in that area? But then again, where else do you go?
Yeah.
There's just on that west side, you know this, I mean, there's just nowhere else.
The county would prefer us to put it there than closer to residential, I can tell you that.
Sure.
They preferred us to go
It
inside
would
of
be,
the
a
industrial.
bus barn would fit better in a commercial or industrial.
It's
zone.
industrial where we have pitiful low amount of industrial in this county. But,
Yes.
Which also.
no, I'm fine, as
impacts
long as
the-
it's that's kind of an interesting, Mr. Weissayer here explained it to us.
That's all we have,
That's
sir.
it for my update.
Thank you, London Mark.
Any other comments or questions on this?
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Soto had something.
Kelly?
No? Oh, I thought you were sure.
On the, actually,
You know
on-
what, did we
on
agree
the-
then, did we already say, okay, so we're taking under advisement right now, facilities recommendation for those 6 upgrades.
For the 6 priorities, yes, sir.
Okay, so here's what I have to say.
well, we're going to vote on that
definitely
in,
Right.
May.
I definitely, I just had a little confusion on how you were framing this, on equity. And so, and maybe just that word means different to a lawyer, from what we know. But look, if what indeed is that we're moving forward, as Ms. Castillo is also, explaining, is that we're trying to bring value to the community. I think Mr. Booth also said about, in some communities being able to use this space and bringing just more value, then that's what we should say, not that we're doing any equity. I think that if we're moving forward with how we see our middle schools in particular, in terms of athletics, in terms of having these amenities and everything, and we say, hey, this is what we want to provide our students, and in addition, our community, then that's what we're doing. And I'm all for that. I've always been an advocate that our schools are, a very important central cultural focus in our community, and that we go beyond just, providing the quality education that we do and improving communities and neighborhoods, and this is part of that. So, it's nothing wrong with us saying, hey, that's what our focus is, and we're actually investing extra money in achieving that particular goal. That was my point. So for that reasons, I would approve this, and I would hope going forward that we think in that way, whatever renovations or, or construction that we're doing in the future. It's a great investment. We
But
need
when
to
you
start
say,
thinking different.
I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood. When we say equity, meaning we're bringing the standards of this school to the rest of the middle schools, right? That's what we mean by
Correct.
equity,
That's
right?
what I
Okay,
mean
that's
by
what I
equity
understand.
means everybody's got a gym.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that everybody has a gym that seats
Perfect.
262
Yeah,
people.
Sure.
And everybody's got a locker room. Maybe one's a little
Yeah.
bigger than the other, but they got,
That's,
They have it.
I think
They have
it.
equity is
They've
a
got a
wide
they got a
range.
course.
Yeah, there's
It's
equity.
what it is. It may not be, I mean, I hope we're not getting down to the square inch of size and that sort of stuff. It's having the functionality that are kind of,
Yeah.
are similar.
Yeah.
I understand. Okay.
But I
Also-
I do agree with Mr. Soto's point. I do like it.
I like the community, I love the community. I don't disagree with
Mr.
that.
Wheeler would say very often, I do like it couched your way better.
Well, yeah, it sounds almost like semantics, but I certainly don't want to go ahead and say, we're doing things because it's everywhere else without thinking about what we're really trying to accomplish, in terms of our strategic goals.
Okay.
That's it.
Fair enough. On the agenda, we do have a spot for any board comments or questions or discussions anybody like to have. I don't know if anybody's got anything they would like to bring up, but it's on the agenda if we choose to want to discuss anything publicly before our meeting. And if not,
Ms. Castillo had something, I think. She was
Yeah.
raising her hand.
oh, I'm sorry.
I was
No?
not raising my
Oh, I
hand.
thought you were. I'm sorry.
You need glasses.
If you were, please don't speak up because I don't want to get yelled at again. Not by you.
No. Like, who yelled at you?
Wasn't you?
Long story.
It's a long story.
So, are we open up to any
Yes.
discussion?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so.
Within 5, but it can't last more than 5 minutes.
No, here we go. Here we go. You all received the email describing the new policy regarding
Yes.
high school athletics.
Actually, you know what? I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought that up.
Oh, you are?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
I
so
am.
that's why I brought it up, because I know you like it.
Yep.
But let me go ahead and get to the point real quick. So, there's been some clarification. And just so you can understand from my perspective, I think it makes a lot of sense. Okay, and I always look at things from many different points of views, and here's a public health perspective that is really useful for us. However, I just see just something about mandating it the way that we did in our policy, and I have questions, legal questions about it.
Let me,
Well, no, how about forget the question, because I don't want to state them.
Yeah.
Concerns, and I just want to make sure that whatever policy that we make that requires that we mandate certain medical procedure for our student, that we know exactly that we're not really invading privacy issues.
I hear your question, but I'm just going to give you my 2 cents on it. First off, I think participating in sports is a privilege, not a right necessarily. And if we've got something, we've got people that the group that's called Who We Play For, or whatever. I don't think I got that
Yeah.
right, but I'm close. They do this. This is led by a guy whose best friend dropped dead playing soccer, who was perfectly healthy. If we prevent one of those, first off, I think it's worthwhile. Secondly, when somebody is playing sports in a school, I don't care if it's Osceola County or somewhere in Alaska, and somebody drops dead on a field, it doesn't just impact that student who's deceased, obviously, his family or her family. You've messed a coach up for life. You've messed other kids who stood there and watched somebody. So it's not just that one person. It's the whole impact of everybody else. And I don't have a problem, quite frankly, mandating that this is a simple test. It's not invasive at all. They do them in 4 or 5 minutes a person. They're pretty darn quick. And to find somebody who's got that issue, first off, they ought to be thrilled they found it for nothing, or $20 if they can afford the $20. And I say I kind of go back to sports as a extracurricular. I'm not going to say sports. A lot of that extracurricular drama, whatever it happens to be, is a privilege. And I think if we save somebody from dying, we save that family, and we save everybody else the experience of having that happen around them, it's worth it to me to require it.
This would just be
As long
in
as it's
addition. They're already getting a physical, right? So it's just an
in
additional.
addition.
It's part of their physical. It's not like we're mandating anything.
This
out of-
detects a certain type of.
Yeah. I mean, but I would like. What kind of legal questions would you have?
No,
I guess I would need to.
No, I agree. I agree with Mr. Thacker 100%. Actually,
Yeah.
I could go further and explain why the law would actually be in our side on this.
Oh,
It's
okay.
just to make sure that whenever we're doing this, that we do touch upon that. Because when I did my inquiry, I would have probably, there wasn't nothing mentioned that analysis was made. But I think
I
it's almost.
understand.
Dr.
Okay.
Pace,
Yeah.
I think had them cover it with me.
I understand
And I
what you
said,
mean.
I think it's
Yeah.
Okay.
a reasonable saving.
But it was
All right.
something as well that this was discussed by the
Yes,
board.
it was. I understand
That was
what
before
Mr.
you
Soto is
became a
saying,
member.
and Mr. Thacker is making almost the vaccination argument, which I 100% agree with. Essentially, when you don't vaccinate your kids, you're making a very selfish move, hoping that everybody else vaccinates their kids so that your kid doesn't get sick. So that's extremely
We've seen
selfish.
that.
It's
We've seen the results
dangerous.
of that.
Yeah.
It's dangerous. Now, if there's medical issues, I get that. I'm put those aside. But when you do that, you are a detriment to your community. Your child then becomes a danger to the community because there's some vaccines you can't get until you're 6 months, a year old, whatever. Okay, and you've kind of made that argument about kind of an emotional, or you have made it as an emotional kind of response. But to your point, I would actually be okay if it was explained to the parent that if your child may have this,
really stifling.
they could drop dead on the field. This 5-minute test that costs $20 would tell you, and if they still say, "I'll sign the paper not to have it done," I would actually, I would be okay with that. To your point.
But there's no waiver provision into this policy.
There isn't, and we didn't discuss it the last time we were here, and I'm actually fine the way the policy is. But
The reason I would recommend against that,
Okay.
as the lawyer,
please,
you'll have parents saying the risks were never properly enforced.
And that's kinda what I said. If they have a piece of paper they sign.
Their
Yep.
clients the risks of not taking the test, there should have been this, there should have been this, and then we're into a lawsuit.
Okay.
So my view
Don't
is.
even open it.
Now I'm back on the other side.
No, I
After
tell you,
legal counsel.
Mr. Thacker couldn't have explained it any better. I totally see it the way that he does. It's just that, at a certain level, we're actually assigning ourselves a level of responsibility that generally it should be something that parents do on their own. And now we're saying is, hey, you know what? If you want to participate, guess what? It's not up to you anymore. We're going to be imposing this as a government
Parents also
entity.
can't do this for $20.
Now that there's a whole line of cases that says that we can do this. That's not even.
Yeah,
a question of that.
unfortunately, we have a lot of people who aren't parenting.
No, I get it.
But you may have.
You know what? My
you may
kids
come
have not
across
had
an
this
issue.
done.
You may come
And,
across the case.
But they
They
will.
start high school athletics.
Yep, and you know what? I'm all for it.
You may come across a case where but this is all they dreamed of. My daughter's going to play a UF and this and that. I'm like, well, you know what? We did this thing, and you got to get this screening, and you're not going to play.
But
But again, we're talking. I mean, it's a.
what happens when
it's
that child
essentially
has that congenital heart issue? And they find it.
And please
It's
understand.
a real benefit actually to the parent and the child to get this done for this price,
Yeah, almost
and then to
everything-
have this information.
Most of
And
these
we're
things
going to
they
work
find
with
fixable.
any parent or student
Most of these things
that
they
has a
find
financial
fixable.
challenge or something like that to make sure that that kind of stuff doesn't stand in
That
the way.
is my question.
Just like we
How do we
always
decide
do with
who
anybody
can
else.
afford it, who can't afford it?
We handle those things individually with those particular parents and students.
Okay.
And it's one time during their high school. It's
No,
not
no,
every-
I understand all that.
And by the way, I favor this policy. It's just that there's a different analysis as a board member that I also take. That's what it is.
No,
I'm glad you brought it
I
up.
like the way
Because until Mr. Krevenbacher gave me legal advice, I would have been okay with
Well, the
signing
problem
a
with-
strong waiver.
The thing about the waiver is, though, that all of a sudden, then our policy goals cannot be met. And that's what happens. It's like, well, for any reason, it could be an inconvenience, and that could prompt a waiver. And here's the point that Mr. Thacker made that is extremely important is that it's not just the student and the parent finding out about some kind of latent issues that we know already from a lot of news articles and a lot of things that children are having these issues, during sports events that were undiagnosed, and we're trying to prevent that. But then it's also the impact that it has on the community school district, on the students. And we have, and I think we have, I won't use the word compelling, but we definitely have a rational interest in preventing that.
Absolutely, we do.
So Brevard County does this, and Seminole County, the way I understand it.
So now we could say we discussed it, in public.
I like that.
Right on. Anything else? We got a few more minutes, right?
I've got,
Your 5 minutes went to 10 now.
Hey, well, y'all love it.
I'll keep mine to, I hope, 2 or 3. We have the master board training update, whatever it's called, in a month or so. One thing I'd ask Dr. Pace, if we could possibly include in some of that discussion as we get down there and have that led, is a lot of us have done some of the listening tours, have been in schools and talked to some of those things, and maybe use that as an opportunity to bring some of those
Yes.
issues up as it relates to our strategic plan.
Yes.
And are there some things there we can discuss and address? So if you'll either make notes, bring them with you, or give them to Dr. Pace beforehand, she can file them, whatever.
She has all our.
Yeah, is, I
comments.
thought
No, I'm
that-
talking about things, I'm not talking about the 40 pages. No.
Yeah.
Here's I can tell you, there's
Yeah.
5 or 6 issues
Sure.
that have come through loud and clear on all of
Mr.
mine.
Chairman, so let me just double check that you're able to do that under the Sunshine Law.
Okay,
Because the citizens of Osceola County.
since we're out
are
of
not gonna
county.
be- That's why I just asked
Okay.
that where.
Okay, if we can't do it
And
there, we'll do
I'll
it
just
somewhere.
clear it one way or the other with the AG, because you don't want to have
Absolutely.
that pop up on you.
But it starts to,
We'll
it
do it
kind
on
of
the way
direct,
back.
it might direct our strategic plan or changes as we talk about. Yeah, just if we can't do it, we can't do it.
And if not, I'll be sure to schedule, we sent you guys information about trying to schedule a workshop regarding the strategic plan. I didn't get a lot of feedback back from anybody other than Ms. Castillo. And so we will again
'Cause it's
try
in
to
like June
schedule
or
that.
July, right?
But let's
I don't know
do
what
check
I'm doing next
because
week.
Ms. Pinkinson has agreed to add strategic planning to our agenda as part of our discussion for our master board training, and it will be publicly noticed as master board training. but
One
it
more
is in
question
Gainesville.
on that. So
And
I
June-
know you briefly discussed bringing the abbreviating or changing the time of that? Were you able to get that done?
We'll start at 8 to 4.
I thought we were talking about maybe getting out of there at 3:30, like doing 7:30 to 3:30. You mentioned
8 to
that.
4.
Okay. Board, I will bring it to your attention that I may have a business meeting to attend in Las Vegas, and I may have to leave just slightly early.
Well,
Maybe just like an hour, but we'll just have to
This
wait.
is our master board recertification.
I understand.
And you have a colleague who's going to be
The
sworn in as president of
No. I'm
we'll
Okay.
keep it brief.
No, I'm
Is
talking about the
30
thing on May
minutes
2nd.
Right.
Gonna be-
And then
is
remember,
30
June
minutes
12th
gonna
through
be
the
couple
14th, the information just came
Getting
out
back to
today
the
about
OIA,
FSBA.
yeah.
Get with me, we'll coordinate so you get right through.
There you go.
There you go. It's all settled.
All right.
Now we stand adjourned for 15 minutes.
I need to eat.
There is going to be